So like, first thing I think is call to order. We got that call to order, and then we go to the roll call, please.
Mr. Panarello.
Here.
Mr. Updegrove.
Here.
Mr. Zawada.
Here.
Mrs. Scott.
Here.
Ms. Deeroff.
Present.
Mr. Hemingway.
Here.
Mrs. Hogan.
Present.
Ms. Nyman.
Here.
Mr. Brophy.
Here.
All present.
We could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. And also, I'd like everybody to keep in their minds, hearts, and prayers today for all our veterans over the decades, centuries, years that have given their lives and their time to allow us to do what we do here in this country. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. With that, I want to bring forward the highlight of the night, and this would be the presentation from the parents, teachers, and all of Earl Elementary. This is what we're really here for tonight, guys. So you better be good about this.
All right. Well, good evening and welcome to Earl Elementary School. My name is Dulcie Rothermel and I am the dean that supports Boyertown Elementary School, Gilbertsville Elementary School, and Earl Elementary School. I work very closely with Mrs. Franco, Earl Elementary's principal. Our goal has been to make sure that Earl Elementary goes from being BASD's best kept secret to being Earl Strong. We have exceptional staff members and community members who go above and beyond every day to meet the needs of our students. Most importantly, we have a wonderful group of students here at Earl. You will have the opportunity to meet some of our 5th grade students tonight.
Good evening. My name is Anastasia. At Earl, we pride ourselves in having a positive school climate, striving to make students and staff feel safe, welcome, and important members of our school community. Our trimester themes, be kind, be helpful, and be respectful, are embedded in everything that we do here. Please enjoy the video that Mr. Joe Vendetti, former 5th grade Earl teacher of 47 years, created to share what being kind, helpful, and respectful looks like according to the students at Earl.
During lunch and recess and on the school bus. Everyone at Earl is important. We will not tease, bully, or engage in unsafe behaviors. If we see these behaviors, we will report them to an adult. Adults are here to keep us safe. When we work together, we are Earl Strong.
Kind means to me that you're always nice to someone and you're always helping that person. Helping them when they're down, even if they are not the same as everyone else. You still need to be kind to them.
I was helpful because I gave Cyrus a tail clean. I be kind to everybody in my classroom. You share your toys to everyone and you don't steal them. I remember when I fell and I hurt my arm and I broke it, someone helped me up and took me to the teacher. Being respectful is being respectful of people who are sitting next to you so you don't bother them while they're learning. And respecting your teacher while they're talking. When they're talking, don't talk. and respecting like belongings to each other in like the classroom, and always put things where they're supposed to go. So there's like a little lift, and then I hit it, and it really hurt. My brother, he picked me up and brought me inside. Be helpful means like when someone trips someone in the hallways, you always help them up, or if their food falls all over the cafeteria, help their food on their tray and help them up. My sister was trying to get her lunchbox from the fridge. She couldn't get it because it was all the way up on the top, and then I had to help her. When I was helpful, someone hit his head on the playground, but I told the teacher. I spilled something, and it was like very big, and everyone just came around. In football, I get hurt a lot, and everyone always tries to help me out. You can be helpful by holding the door, or if someone got hurt outside of school, you can call another adult to help them. Being respectful means like not interrupting anybody when they're talking, or like not just screaming out when they ask you a question. Don't just like say it instead of just like raising your hand. You should just always raise your hand. I asked this girl because she was sitting down and it looked like she felt like it was okay, and she said yes. If someone needs help on their computer, you can help them with that. Or if they're struggling on like math or something, you could do that too. A lot of people have been helpful to me by helping me put my stuff away, and I've been helpful to a lot of people by helping them put their stuff away. You can be kind by, if someone drops their crayons, you could help them pick them up, or maybe another material. So maybe respectful, like to respect others and make sure you like don't make someone like not feel okay, and you make sure that everyone feels like they are allowed to be there and don't feel like that they're not supposed to be there. And David could say, please, and I could say thank you to him.
Good evening. My name is Griffin. I hope you enjoyed the video and have a better understanding of what being kind, helpful, and respectful looks like at Earl. We are committed to these values both within the school and in the community. Led by the Student Council, Earl students have already collected 1,665 food items, which have been donated to the Boyertown Area Multi-Service to benefit Preston's Food Pantry earlier this year. In memory of Preston and his selfless contribution to helping others, Earl has collected and donated to Preston's Pantry since it was founded in 2019.
Good evening. My name is Maeve. In addition to supporting Preston's Pantry, Earl Elementary partners with Blue Star Mothers of America, a nonprofit organization that supports active duty service personnel, promotes patriotism, assists veteran organizations, and assist in homeland volunteer efforts. Earl students collected 267 pounds of Halloween candy and 579 additional food items to be donated to our deployed troops throughout the holiday season. We've truly embraced our trimester themes and are dedicated to our community service.
We have not yet sealed all of the boxes.
Contributions from school board members at this time will complete our collection.
Thank you for visiting Earl Elementary School and contributing to our community service efforts. We hope you had a great evening.
Okay, we get to see the fruits of our labors here when we get to watch things like that. Plus the fact of the time they're putting in to put the donations and help others. I think it's a great thing. That's why part of the reason why we're here. With this, I'd like to turn over the meeting to Mr. Zawada and Mr. Panarella to go on with the curriculum portion of it. And with that, it's all yours.
Thanks for everyone to be here tonight. It is an important night. Tonight we'd like to discuss the curriculum at Boyertown Area School District. First, let me state that Tony and I believe the board, the administration, and the teachers have the same goal, which is to make sure our students receive the best education possible to prepare them for what lies ahead, whether that be secondary education, the military, or the workforce. Are there other ways we can prepare our children for the future? Yes. Board and administration are looking into ways outside of the norm to educate. If you remember last year, we had a student graduate with an associate's degree from Montco, as well as receiving their high school diploma. We have programs with Harrisburg and Montco, and as you heard at our last meeting, we also have set up a partnership with Albright College for esports. We're moving in the right direction as a school district. Mr. Stout shortly will start by giving an in-depth presentation on the curriculum, which is state mandated, which is not a state mandate. And what you will see is materials used to teach the classes, whether it be handouts, videos, or suggested readings. Those materials are left to the discretion of the teachers. That is why it is so important for our parents and guardians to be involved with their children's homework. You are the first line of defense against any questionable materials. Now, what is questionable? To some may be not questionable at all. That's why you as a parent has to decide. This year we've received a handful of complaints with regard to teachers' lesson plans. This in part is why we are having this public meeting. When the questionable assignments were brought to the proper authority, they were removed immediately. If issues arise, we have a process in place that will allow to make the administration aware and said questionable materials. First, contact the principal at your child's school to present the information that is questioned and schedule a meeting, email, or phone call. The best way to handle this and to keep the record of all communications. Second, if you're still not satisfied, please contact the superintendent and schedule a meeting with her and the principal. If all else fails, then you contact us. For this to happen properly, everyone involved needs to provide real data, not hearsay. Finally, tonight, this is strictly about curriculum. Any other subjects will be forced to, if they're brought up, will be forced to stop. Please consider your fellow speakers. I'm sure this is going to be a lot of passion and spirited discussions. Again, this is about our children's future.
Thank you. I would like to thank everyone for attending tonight. I was talking to Mrs. Deeroff before the meeting started, and I think it was possibly back in 2009 that I interviewed with the school board in the library at Earl Elementary School. And I think, Mrs. Deeroff, I'm going to say this as a positive. I believe you might have been the only person on the board at that time who actually was part of the hiring process for me. And I'm proud to say that starting my 13th or 14th year that I'm happy that Boyertown has entrusted in my leadership to help support the district and do great things for kids. I've had multiple opportunities in the Boyertown Area School District to be a principal for approximately 9 years, and then as administration has transitioned, I am now blessed with the opportunity to work hand in hand, side by Mrs. Torsha and the rest of our administrative team to support our kids. And I'd also would be absolutely remiss if I'm not saying out there to the public that I am very proud to say that I am thankful for all of our 500 plus teachers within our district who work on a daily basis to meet the needs of our kids. It's not an easy task. When I visit schools and I think back to my classroom days, it's not an easy scenario. And I also need to say that over 1,000 employees within the district, from the time that kids get on that school bus till the time they get off that school bus, cafeteria staff, everyone that helps to support making this family of Boyertown Area School District as successful as it possibly can be. So I wanted to make sure I put that out there first. So that being said, let's cut to the presentation. I wanted to also kick off the presentation by going to PA School Code and just putting it out there. And I'm only going to read a portion of it, which I think is really important, but it's part of PA School Code 4.11, and that is the purpose of public education. So I wanted to start off by saying that this section 4.11 describes the purpose of public education and its relationship with the academic standards. Public education prepares students for adult life by attending to their intellectual and developmental and challenging them to achieve at their highest level possible. In conjunction with families and other community institutions, public education prepares students to become self-directed, lifelong learners, responsible, and involved citizens. Together with parents, families, and community institutions, public education provides opportunities for students to, these are 7 bullets. First one, acquire knowledge and skills. Secondly, develop integrity. 3, process information. 4, think critically. 5, work independently. 6, collaborate with others. And 7, adapt to change. So I thought it's important that I just put out there that our PA School Code, which by the way was established in 1949, set those parameters to help move us forward as a district. We are blessed tonight to go through a very detailed curriculum presentation. This presentation could probably last a week based upon all the information that's in here. The Office of Teaching and Learning, I would also very much like to highlight in their collaborative efforts to bring all of this compilation of information together. We purposefully created this presentation to present to you tonight. But as we move forward, this presentation is going to present itself as a resource for not only school board members, but also community members to access if they have any particular question about curriculum, where it comes from the state level, resources that we have within the Boyertown Area School District, and also links to resources that we have on our website. So it is, for lack of a better term, an interactive presentation that we hope will be a nice resource. So when someone asks a question, to Mr. Zawada's point a little earlier, this might be a resource that you could go to first. Here's our agenda for tonight, and as good instruction does, we start off with our I can statements. So we have 4 very specific goals to go through for tonight. The first one is truly to review the chronological series of curriculum-related sessions presented to the school board over the past 14 months. I know that we inundate you with a lot of information, but we also created the first few slides of this presentation to give you the background of what we've presented to the board already. The second goal is to develop an understanding of the standards, curriculum, instruction, and assessment within Boyertown Area School District. The third one, and this is exciting because it's hard to think about the 23, make sure I say this correctly, 23-24 school year, but as Mr. or Dr. Foley and his staff will present to you, we are at the cusp of already scheduling for next year's courses. So we're only pushing a third of the way through this school year, but we're already thinking about next year. So you will get an overview of our programs of academic studies at both the middle and high school level. And finally, and this is such an exciting opportunity for the Boyertown Area School District, but we're blessed, as you learned about the special education plan that happens maybe about 3-5 years, I forget, every 5 years. It's every 3 years. The comprehensive plan, which is another plan that encompasses the special ed plan, it encompasses basically everything within a school district. We are coming up on the due date for that in the spring of next year of 23. So you're going to learn about the timeline of events that are going to take place over the next so many months to plan for that process. So, quick reminder of all of the presentations that have taken place for the school board over the past 14 months that are curricular related. So back in September 28th of 2021, we had our SEL and PACE survey information that was shared. And I'm not going to, it'll take a lot of time. Again, this is a resource that'll be pushed out to our website so that people have access to it. But the actual blue font is a hyperlink that takes you directly to Board Docs to show you the point in time at which these presentations took place. October 12th of 2021, we presented our portrait of a graduate, and you can see the information that was shared at that particular presentation. In November of 21, we presented an overview of our virtual academy for both the elementary and secondary level. Right around this time last year, this is typical for us to present the academic programs of study for the middle level and high school levels. In that, they talk about new course or program of studies approval and also some recognition components. The Office of Teaching Learning in April 5th of 2022 gave an overview of the Future Ready Index. I will remind all the board members as well as the community members that is truly an excellent one-stop shop to go and look at many factors that are a part of any school district within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. There are 3 components of that dashboard that they look at. State assessment scores. The Office of Teaching Learning and myself were working on some comprehensive planning today, which I just tell you is thrilling. We were working on that today, and we looked at the Future Ready Index for this year. The state assessment scores are not posted in there yet, but you can go back to previous years to look at what our state assessment scores are. You can draw comparisons to neighboring school districts across the Commonwealth. They also track on-track measures as far as attendance, demographic data, and then also college and career readiness. Because as you will learn, and we've presented to you as a board, the college and career readiness standards are critical because we are working very hard to plan and program to provide students the opportunity to be successful as they move forward. As we stated in our portrait of a graduate, where do we want our kids to be by the time they graduate Boyertown Area School District, and how do we provide them the opportunities for success? More information. I believe, again, Mr. Zawada made reference to this, but our dual enrollment opportunities. I believe the senior high staff created a presentation back in August, which seems like it was just yesterday. We're in November, August 9th, that was presented. It gave you a program of study overview, a brief overview of the previous program of study, and then outlined the scheduling timeline that secondary does during the course of a year, also highlighted honors, AP dual enrollment courses, and also AP and dual enrollment in itself about within the Boyertown Area School District. As I made mention, the special education plan is another very comprehensive document that is part of the special education process with any school district within the Commonwealth. The special education department created a presentation back in October and gave all of the information that is highlighted there. Everything from staff, statistics, and types of services that we provide. And again, at the bottom, the special education plan is there. As I stated before, the board, the community will eventually have access to this. They can click on that hyperlink and it takes you right to that point in Board Docs. Here is our internship presentation. If you remember, we had some students from the high school come and present to the school board about the unbelievable opportunities that kids are given today with respect to the internships that they have available. We in the Boyertown Area School District actually provide internship opportunities in our IT department. We have interns within the administration building. It's exciting to get our students involved and give them a taste of what it's like to be out in that workforce and hopefully be able to help support and guide their thinking process. And the final reminder that we have here is that just back in October, a couple weeks ago, we had our SRI cohort come and present how we are working on a relationship with Albright College and the components that go along with that with the Science Research Institute, and also moving down, which you you will hear a little bit about when Mr. or Dr. Foley talks about the program of study and how we're looking to present an esports program for the upcoming school year. That being said, I think I am off for a minute. I'm going to introduce Dr. Sarah Barrow, who is our Director of Teaching and Learning, and she's going to start talking a little bit about curriculum.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. So I'm going to start off. Mr. Stout and I are going to kind of tag team the rest of this presentation, and then we have some support from the secondary level administration as well around the programs of study. So when we say the word curriculum, we want to make sure that we have a common understanding of what we mean when we say that word. So if we look at board policy tells us that curriculum is a series of planned instruction that is aligned to the academic standards in each subject area and coordinated and articulated and implemented in a manner designed to result in what? Student achievement and growth. That's why we do what we do, because we want to support our students and continue to move them forward. In general, when we think about general terms of curriculum, it's what we teach, it's the plan for student learning. We often say it's what students need to know and be able to do. So it's not just about skills, it's about how do we take those skills, build them into broader concepts, and then how do we apply them and transfer them into the real world. We are required to align them to state mandated standards, and we need to make sure that students have a level of proficiency. When they start in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, all of those skills and concepts build upon each other. We call that vertical alignment from kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. If you're missing some skills that you should have learned in first grade, you're going to have a little bit more trouble grasping those skills in second grade because your foundation's a little bit shaky. So we make sure we look at that vertical alignment, and we make sure in curriculum we also look at learning targets. Those are those goals that, like Mr. Stout introduced, the I can statements for this evening. We articulate those in developmentally appropriate ways for students to understand them. I taught kindergarten for a little while, and we had learning targets in our classroom, so kindergarten students could articulate, in math today, what are we going to do? We're going to add single-digit numbers, and then we worked through what that meant, and they could help track their progress throughout as well. We, of course, have assessments, and then we have suggested curriculum materials. All of that, in a nutshell, is curriculum. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And then we think about instruction. So instruction is how you take all of those pieces that I just went over and you put it into play. That's how it comes across in the implementation within our classrooms. So it's what is taught, but when we think about how do we teach that, we have to think about our students and the needs of our students. I have 4 children of my own. Their needs have varied greatly. Same mom, same dad, but let me tell you, they're different creatures, each one of them. So I know just in my house, my own children's strengths vary, their needs vary. Think about a classroom of 25 students. You can imagine the needs that are presented within that classroom. So teachers have a job, a difficult job, to consider what does each child in that classroom need and how can they adjust their instruction to best meet that student within that learning environment. So they may adjust the instructional practices. Sometimes it's whole group, sometimes it's small group, sometimes it's partners, sometimes it's individuals. We group flexibly based on the needs of our students. Teachers plan what we call backwards. Now, it doesn't mean that it's upside down, but it's backward because they have to know their goal first. So when you know the goal, when you know what the standard is, then you can backward plan from that. I know the goal is here. I know from my assessment, my students are here. So how am I going to fill that gap? And I might have students who are here, and I might have students who are here. So how do I differentiate to move this child here to reach this benchmark? And how do I differentiate to move this child here to reach this benchmark? And then, hey, I have kids that are already past that. So how do I continue to help them grow and move them forward as well? So that's just some of the ways that teachers are going to structure that learning environment in those instructional practices to meet the students who come to them each and every day during each and every period of that day.
My turn. Curriculum materials are in reference to the process that Dr. Obero made reference to. The curriculum materials refer to the instructional content that is provided to a student regardless of its format. We can certainly all relate to what has transpired over the past few years, how a few years ago our curricular model kind of turned on its ear overnight, and we had to adapt and modify and try to stay whole to our standards, but also provide resources to our students that were more virtual in nature. So when you think about our curriculum materials in general, we talk about our materials can include printed, representational materials, audiovisual materials, and materials electronic or in digital format, such as materials that are accessible through the internet. So again, as we have progressed forward, we have learned about more resources and materials that are available to us. And I also like to point out to this, we always think about a textbook. Many of us that when we went to school, we had a textbook in front of us and we learned through that textbook. Well, what we have learned through the textbooks themselves not holding up. Each textbook can cost $100, $200. Well, when you start thinking about students needing to access a textbook, it can be very costly to constantly renew our textbooks based upon changes, based upon processes that are no longer in the correct format of what might have been from just 5 to 10 years ago. So we are looking for not only materials that meet our students' need, but we're looking for materials that are as cost effective as we possibly can, because we certainly don't want to be putting money out in materials that just almost overnight become irrelevant or become obsolete based upon what they have. So we also created a visual for what Dr. Obero and I just made reference to. I talked about in the early part about PA school code. Everything that we do within the school district follows PA school code. We are mandated to follow PA school code, and then we have policies based upon PA school code which allow us the opportunity to implement whatever that code might be. So as we talked about the curriculum, instruction, and curricular materials, the visual in front of you was created to help give you just kind of a flow chart of what it looks like. It's hard to see up there, but those are black arrows between each of those bubbles. So we start off in the curriculum, like Dr. Obero made reference to, with our PA, our PDE, Pennsylvania Department of Education standards. We go to our learning targets, like we did for you tonight. We gave you an example of what our learning targets were for tonight, and then we move to our assessments. What kinds of assessments do we put in place to support, validate, or say, hey, we need to do something a little bit different this time because our kids did not achieve what they needed to achieve at that particular time. Our assessments, we have both our state and local assessments. As we've also learned through the process, our state assessments have kind of gone a little bit different than what we would have predicted in the past because of what has taken place over the past few years. It's not just a Boyertown trend, it's a trend across the Commonwealth where our state assessment scores have been depressed compared to where they may have been in the past. But I'm not happy to say that our scores are lower, but what I am supportive to say is the fact that our scores are commensurate with local school districts and comparable to local school districts, just like they were before the pandemic. So point of that being, I think there might be, I don't know, Mr. Sultanic's 500 school districts in the district. I forget what the last number is. 500 exactly. It used to be 502. Of the 500 districts, everybody is feeling the angst with respect to the state assessment scores. Importantly as well, our local assessments, what we do in each one of our courses, whether that's a formative assessment or a summative assessment that we create within our Boyertown Area School District, gives us that opportunity to have an understanding of what our children learned or what they did not learn at a particular level and be able to have them move forward. Again, referencing what Dr. Obero made reference to, our instruction, and let me talk about the locks that we put here just to kind of give you a visual. If you see a closed lock, that means the Boyertown Area School District has very little control over what this component of this visual is. So for instance, let me go back again. The PDE standards, they're given to us. They are given to us. The learning targets that we create based upon those standards, and you're going to see an example of how detailed a PDE standard is in an upcoming slide. We have the ability to create learning targets based upon the standard. So you'll see an open lock and you'll actually see a closed lock. So that's what the example of the locks are. Assessment, the state assessments, the keystones, the PSSAs, we don't have control over what's given in those assessments, but for our local assessments, we certainly do control what is given at those times. So back to the second line in our visual is the curriculum. It's what is taught. The students is the who it's taught to. The practices is how it's taught. And finally, the environment is where it's taught in our classrooms. And you can see that at various levels there. The curriculum has the closed lock and the open lock. Students, again, our students come to us every day. The students that are in our classrooms are the students that we have coming to us with various backgrounds. This is a public school institution, entity, and we educate all students. So we have little control over who comes to our classrooms. Our practices and how we teach our kids is an open lock, and our environment is also an open lock as well. Curriculum materials, how we go through the best way to facilitate that instructional process to our students. You will see open locks down there because our materials, like I made reference to in the last slide, the print materials, the digital resources, the hands-on materials, and the visuals are all how we as an Office of Teaching and Learning as a district work collaboratively to create resources for our teachers, to access resources for our teachers, to provide resources for our teachers. And with their many years, I believe there's a statistic out there that we have 90% of our teachers have a master's degree. They have that instructional flexibility to make instructional decisions. If I'm teaching the school board today about curriculum and I go home tonight and I say, oh my gosh, I missed out on the opportunity to teach the board about some sort of particular piece of that topic, I might come back tomorrow to the school board, if I was blessed to meet with all of you tomorrow again, and adapt something that I said today to say, you know what, I appreciate that Mr. Zawada asked that question. Mr. Zawada, here's another resource to help support you to maybe facilitate your understanding of a particular topic.
Okay, so Mr. Stout mentioned the complexity of the standards. At the top of the left side of this slide, you're going to actually see a first grade standard in the area of ELA, which is the acronym for English Language Arts. So this standard is retell stories, including key details, and demonstrate understanding of their central message or lesson. So that's a standard in first grade. So we think about what do we need first graders to do as we unpack that standard. Just looking at that standard globally, we have to think about what are the skills, what's the knowledge, what are the concepts students need, we need to extrapolate from that as teachers to ensure that students meet the proficiency levels related to that standard. So what do they have to do? They have to identify a fiction text. They have to know what's the difference between fiction and nonfiction. They need to be able to explain the main parts of a story, the beginning, the middle, end. That sets the stage for plot. As your students go up through third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, even into high school, of course, plot gets a little bit more sophisticated. But in first grade, it's really important that they understand beginning, middle, end, and that sequence. They have to know who is in the story, characters. Where does the story take place? The setting. They have to be able to identify important events in the story that's directly tied to that sequence piece. And then it's that message or lesson. So what did the character learn? And then can they retell the important parts of the story? All of those ICANN learning targets extrapolated from that one standard. So as you can imagine, they're going to be working on that for a little while in first grade. In fact, most of the standards are recursive, meaning that we come back to them throughout the year and we touch upon them. And as students need more work in each of these areas, that's where our small group instruction really is differentiated to support students in those areas. Sometimes we find students really jump on and connect with fiction text, and then nonfiction text is a little bit more challenging for them. We might find the reverse. We might find some students who are really strong in ELA and need a little bit more support in math. Again, that's going to be different each year based on the needs of the students that are in your class or in your courses. But now let's jump to the right side of the screen and you see a high school standard. And this is math for all the people who love math. This is a math standard. It is apply and extend the properties of exponents to solve problems with rational exponents. We thought about bringing you one to do, but then we said, no, we won't do that. But if you take a look at these these I can statements, there's a lot here that we really need to work through. It's a bit more, there are a bit more pieces in here that are going to build then as compared to that left side. Not necessarily more important, but very critical to success as students are advancing in their math skills. So in order to be able to apply and extend properties of exponents to solve problems, students need to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. If they can't do those basic practices, they're not going to be able to apply and extend those properties. Positive and negative numbers, a lot of concepts there. They need to be able to simplify a power that's connected to exponents. Add and subtract, of course, rational numbers. Multiply and divide rational numbers. Are you seeing lots of different lessons happening here in the classroom related to all of these I can statements? I'm not going to read the rest of them, but you get the idea. There's lots of different components within each standard that help us know what are we teaching and how do we best make sure that all students are on that path to continuous growth and improvement. Now, the standards are pretty comprehensive. If you look on this slide, you will see at the top, there is a link to the PDE SAS system. That's the standards aligned system. And when you click on that link, I'll click on it, it will take you into the standard aligned system where you can download and you can take a look at all of the things that we have hyperlinked on this site, on this link. So you don't have to actually go there. You can just click on it here. Here is a link to the ELA standards. If you click on that, right there they are. Over here are the grades 6 to 12 ELA standards. Again, that's English Language Arts. Math is a pre-K to 12 document. I'm not going to open all these links, but again, this will be a reference. It will be posted on our website, so you can go to it at any time. Science is in here. Just so you know, Pennsylvania has adopted new science standards. They're working on revising those, and they must be implemented by the fall of 2025. So we are working to support our teachers with understanding the key components of that, the instructional components of that, and then also, of course, the assessment-related pieces. Social studies are linked there as well, as that's broken down by civics and government, economics, geography, and history across K to 12. Related arts would be things like arts and humanity, world language, health and phys ed, career education, family consumer science, business, computer, and information technology. And then, of course, we have other course guidelines, the NCAA approved courses for our athletes, and then also AP courses connected to College Board. There is a great little video up here that Jen Joyce, one of our curriculum supervisors, created. I'm not going to play it for you, but before you dig into this site, if you watch this 2.5-minute video, it's going to help you be able to navigate this slide to be able to really help you understand and dig into the Pennsylvania standards a little bit more.
One of the elements that the Office of Teaching and Learning, as well as our departments, have been working on are our course curriculum summaries. I can imagine all of you at the school board level right now and in the audience is probably like, this is just a lot of information to process. How can we ever go through all of this information and feel like we have an understanding of what that looks like? Well, I don't know if any of you back in school read the Cliff Notes sometimes, if you didn't really have the time to read the entire book. Well, the Office of Teaching and Learning, as well departments, have created kind of a Cliff Note version of each of our courses, which we are working diligently behind the scenes to get these completed. Our goal is to have them completed by spring. So if you look at, and this is kind of hard to see on the screen up there, but it is just a very brief overview of the course itself. I'm going to just click on a hyperlink here, which takes us to the Google Doc, which shows us the information that might be a little more easy to see, but what it does, it gives the course name. This is, for instance, grade 1 language arts. It gives you a course description about what you will learn in first grade in language arts. It also will give you the prerequisite courses or required state assessments that go along with that. And thank goodness at the first grade level, we don't really have an awful lot of prerequisites coming in for English and language arts or state assessment components at that particular time. But it also gives you an ELA, English language arts year at a glance overview about where our teachers are targeting to be during the course of that academic year. In this summary, this is the same link that would take you on our previous slide to the ELA education standards. If I click on that, it would take us there. And it also talks about key resources that are utilized in first grade to help support our kids. Now I need to get back to where I was. Go into quickly here. We went to Algebra 2 for a course curriculum summary. This gives a little more depth with respect to a higher level course, but it talks about our course description. It gives the length of the course. It actually gives the course number, which is going to, I believe, Dr. Maori in a short time here is going to give a quick overview of our programs of study, but it gives the course number. It also gives the prerequisite courses and the recommendations of what you should potentially have to be able to be recommended for this course. For instance, in Algebra 2, it might make sense that you passed Algebra 1 with a C or higher. It also has here required state assessments, and if it is something that is connected to one of our state assessments, we would put that information in the information here. It gives you the overview year at a glance. It also connects to the PA state standards. So if you want to see, okay, well, what are the required components that go along with the standards that are aligned with this course, they're linkable here. And it also gives the key components of resources that would be utilized in that course. And our goal is to have this summary for each one of our courses at each one of our levels in the elementary, middle, and high school level in the very near future. Secondary program of study, I'm going to introduce Dr. Andrew Maori. He is one of our assistant principals at the high school at Bash, and he is going to talk about both the middle level program of academic study as well as the high school program academic study.
Thank you, Mr. Stout. Good evening, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk about our program of studies. It is a very important document. Probably when you think about what represents a school to potential new families moving in, potential employees that want to work into a district and apply to work at Boyertown, we refer to these two documents probably first and foremost, the program of studies as well as the handbook, the yearly handbook that gets updated. We're focusing on the program of studies tonight, and as Mr. Stout referenced, it outlines the general information of our curricular offerings within the buildings. Now, every school district in, well, I think across the nation has their established curriculum, but it gets put into this program of studies document that is easy to access and easy to understand to see what makes up the school, which is why it's important that every year we come to you and we share with you the information, the changes, the additions and deletions that we tend to every year in the program of studies. Both the high schools and the middle schools have an alignment with our program of studies to support one another, so our whole secondary offering makes sense to our students and our community. The components of the program of studies, first and foremost, has the description of courses. So to build on Mr. Stout's comparison of the Cliff Notes version of those one-page summaries, think of the descriptions in our program of studies as like the USA Today version of the Cliff Notes version of our curriculum. Because in our program of studies, it's just a couple of sentences describing what the class is, enough to pique a student's interest, but also to let him or her know what they should expect, what's going to happen, what that course is about. And as these one-page summaries are finalized, we're going to hyperlink them within our program of studies to make it even easier for our students, family, and communities to be able to click and really get down to some details about the learning objectives and the information that you saw in those one-page summaries. That's the bulk of these program of studies. In addition to that, both in the high school and the middle school program of studies, we have an overview of the counseling services. Our school counselors are very important in the academic growth and matriculation of our students up to the diploma. So we give an overview of what the counseling services can provide, along with explaining our graduation requirements, because again, from district to district, graduation requirements do vary within the state. In our high school document, we focus a lot on our post-graduation preparation and services that we provide our students. In moving to the next steps that Mr. Zawada and Mr. Stout pointed out, we expect our students to be ready to tackle as they graduate from our district. As well as some other information pertaining to the academic opportunities, the honors classes, the AP program, the dual enrollments, what it means to be prepared if you're going to be an athlete in college as well, the NCAA requirements, along with our CTC opportunities as well. So that information you'll be able to identify and find accessible within our program of studies, and we direct our students to that every January once it's finalized, and it kicks off our scheduling season for our students. This year in the program of studies, highlighted some significant changes that are worthy for you to note and to support. First off, as maybe referenced in the August meeting when we focused on the dual enrollment classes, the state has changed for all schools that the weighting bumps that schools give to their DE classes, the dual enrollment college classes, they want to make it equitable with AP classes. So our DE classes are required now to have a 0.2 bump GPA, which is what we have for our AP classes. And we're going to see more and more within our program of studies that students can pursue both the DE guaranteed college credits as well as prepare for the AP exam. I can't guarantee every course, but a lot of these are going to be synonymous that they can prepare for the AP exam should a student choose to go the college guaranteed college route and or take the test for the college credits that way, because our DE curriculum aligns so well with most of the AP classes that are out there. In addition to that, we have two courses we're excited to offer at the high school. One is a DE microeconomics course that's going to be sponsored by Montco. And students to take this course must satisfy the prereq of DE macroeconomics. Additionally, as was mentioned earlier, our esports initiative and development, which is of great interest to our student body, we're putting out a first entry-level course of esports, which will focus on the gaming concepts and equipment. You'll also see both in the high school and middle school program of studies the math alignment and changes that we have worked on and are putting into play that are going to better support our students for the algebra keystone preparation and the higher level math courses they will take through their high school years. There was a change in Harrisburg University, and they are no longer allowing high schools to offer the Ocean World Studies course as a DE credit. We still like the curriculum. There is still student interest in this course, so that will stay part of our program of studies, but will no longer be a DE opportunity. And lastly, what you'll see in our program of studies, the high school, is a clearer, more detailed graphic and explanation of the Act 158, the Keystone requirements, because starting with this graduating class of 2023, those Keystone exams are a requirement or some alternative pathway that aligns with the Keystone exams. So that is going to be clear, and that is more up to date in the new document. To show you what the documents look like once they are approved in the December board meeting, there will be a active hyperlink to this presentation, as well as reflected in various places on our on the websites, are the actual documents. So here's just a quick overview of what the middle school program of studies looks like, and it encompasses both East and West. And like I mentioned before, it does provide background information of the schools and their offerings, and gives graphics to highlight and overlay what the course of study and the matriculation of the 3 years in middle school will look like. Similarly, in the high school program of studies, we have that same information. You are going to see in the finished product a more colorful as well as more hyperlinked document. So what I mean by that is what I'm showing you right now, this PDF version, is approximately 95 pages of our information. That's cumbersome for everybody to go through. And we know that our students who we refer to this document when they go and start their course selection, we want to have more hyperlinks and start, hey, here's our English section. Click here, it's going to take you right to those English classes. Here's our technology education section, and so forth. So you're going to see a lot more hyperlinks, a lot more easier and accessibility and usability for our students, our families, and our community when this is approved and published.
Okay, our comprehensive planning component is the last part of our formal presentation this evening. As Mr. Stout alluded to earlier, comprehensive planning takes place every 3 years. It's a mandate that every school entity must submit to the Secretary of Education in Pennsylvania a professional education plan. And within that plan, there are some key components. There's actually 6 sections that are outlined at the bottom of this slide. Those are a profile of the district, core foundations, that's our alignment to our portrait of a graduate, our district mission, vision, goals, those kinds of pieces. Assurances, our needs assessment, our action planning work around our data, and then of course the submission of the plan. Comprehensive planning is a continuous process. And again, what is our goal? Our goal is to make sure that all of our students are on the path to continuous achievement and growth throughout their time with us, from kindergarten, or pre-kindergarten, I should say, all the way up through 12th grade. So that continuous planning of an LEA, or a local educational agency, is essential to make sure that we are monitoring and that we are adjusting and we are looking at the results that we are getting through those key assessments, and ensuring that we are using research-based best programs, best practices of instruction, supporting our teachers in professional learning, and then focusing and aligning resources that will support our students. Throughout this process, we have public participation. We display the plan for 28 days and offer, so the public can provide some feedback on that. And there is an analysis of the critical factors that the districts will use over the next 3 years to ensure that we are supporting all of our students in that continuous growth process.
Last couple slides, I promise. The Comprehensive Planning Steering Committee, this is a snapshot of the group of people that will be working collaboratively, but as Dr. Obero shared, there will be an opportunity for public comment on our comprehensive plan process so that we can get input from all stakeholders within our district and outside of our district as well. And just thinking about the timeline of what this is going to look like from November of where we are today through March of 2023, because our deadline for the comprehensive plan is March 30th of 2023. I know in my mind that seems like it might be a little bit far away, but we are literally going to blink. It's going to be Thanksgiving, it's going to be the winter break, and the next thing you know, it's going to be January, and March is right around the corner. So we created this pretty aggressive plan to move forward to complete the requirements. And again, as we stated, this is a state required document that helps to provide guidance to meet the needs of all of our students across the district. There's a lot of specific things there, but for the most part, we complete a needs assessment within the portal. We, as we talked about earlier, have a steering committee that has conversation about analyzing the strengths and the challenges that we post within our portal. We're going to have a steering committee meeting to update the information there, and by that particular time, we then put the draft version of the comprehensive plan out to the community to get feedback on the information that's in there. I'm going to say the comprehensive plan itself is well over 100 pages long. I predict, Mrs. Torsha, that we will probably be doing some sort of board presentation between now and then when we get to a good point, so that we can do an overview of where we are in that comprehensive plan. And then our ultimate goal is in February that the board the comprehensive plan will be given to the board to review. They will approve, and it ultimately gets submitted and finalized within the portal by March 30th of 2023. And at that particular time, they will either accept it or kick it back to us with recommended adjustments to the plan. So that is is our pretty much the work behind the scenes of the Office of Teaching and Learning and many teams within the district to provide the required elements of the comprehensive plan to meet the deadline of really, I say March 30th, but technically it really needs to be done by the end of February so that we're ready to roll for that timeline. Questions? Be a question on any one of our ICANN statements. So, and I'll pull people up here to have various feedback.
Now, this is just quick. Being this is my first year on the board, compared to previous academic submissions, where does it seems like it's pretty in-depth, especially for the math end of it. Is it more challenging than it was previously?
More challenging with respect to meeting the needs of our students or meeting the requirements of what for graduation. And if somebody from maybe Dr. Maori or somebody wants to come up, as you see, one of the recommended alignment things that we are doing this year is really about math. And to answer your question, over the years, we have had a few variations of our math alignment from middle level to high school. And we have keystone requirements that are kind of trigger courses. And we haven't hit those triggers quite as efficiently as we would have liked to. So that new math alignment that you'll see, and I think, guys, the official start was this year with the what?
It's going to be a 3-year process
Right.
till we're on track of where we need to be. But there's been an overlap and there's been redundancy, and redundancy is needed in certain places and times with our math sequencing. But we've gotten the right people together, following the right plan for the standards, and we've put that into place to better to answer the call that we've needed based on our math results, and we're responding to the data and what it's telling us.
And as you see with that, Mr. Zawada, one of the things, you can't just put it in place tomorrow. You have to start with a cohort of kids. So you have to also finish where some kids are and then start that process. And that's where we are at that starting point. So that's why it's a critical element. But it's a great question. And it really hopefully will yield higher math level scores because our trigger courses will be more closely aligned where they need to be from a timeline perspective. Go ahead.
It's not buzzing. All right, good. So I think in representing the parents, and I hope I get all their questions right, and myself too as well, when you showed the portrait of a graduate, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the little graph thing. You have a quarter there for SEL, okay, social emotional learning, okay? So nothing's mentioned here. This is all the academic part of that graph, and that's fine. And I think that's great. I don't have any questions on the academics at Boyertown. Okay, I think Boyertown has a lot of opportunity here for our kids. The social emotional curriculum or learning, whatever you want to call it, what are the goals of that? What is the curriculum? I mean, you've given a lot with the academics, but we haven't seen anything there. So I have questions because I'm not familiar with it. And so I would want to know what is your goal with that? How is it presented in the classroom? Because I didn't see it on their schedules. Like I don't see a spot for it. So how does that play in? Is it in every subject? Is it random? I mean, what do we do with that?
Okay, so my response to you is, as you and I have a conversation back and forth, and we treat each other with respect, and I listen to your question, and I could agree with your question, I could disagree with your question, but the unwritten curriculum that's part of that process is how we might treat one another in making people feel, making people be comfortable with what's happening. Our students today that come to our classroom come with a multitude of needs. And if I think about just in general, I was blessed to be Colbrookdale's principal for almost 9 years. The kids at Colbrookdale Elementary School, from a socioeconomic perspective, they are now over 50% free and reduced lunch, where other schools in our district are much lower than that. And the needs of our kids in all of our buildings are at a different level. So I go back to my initial point about how we treat one another, and some some of those pieces about classroom management, classroom culture, how we, as you saw in the Earl presentation today, it was all about how students treat one another and treat one another with respect and treat each other with dignity. So we do have counseling components that are part of our courses that counselors come in and provide different types of resources for our kids, but it really comes back to how we are working with one another in that process and meeting those needs of our kids from the perspective that aren't necessarily just those core academic issues, but how we work collaboratively to be together in a classroom.
So it's classroom management. You do have some instructional aids though. So if parents wanted to see something that you're coming in and you're presenting it to the class, you're saying, she's shaking her head no. Okay. I don't want to get it wrong. I want to understand.
Give me an example of what an instructional aid might be. I just want to make sure I'm clear. Yeah.
Something that that the counselor gives. You said they come into a class at times and might give the kids some helps. Did you use the word helps?
They might come in and help students or teach some core components that might be from a counseling perspective within a classroom, because our counselors provide multiple types of supports. They provide that in a classroom. They provide it individually. At the senior high level, they provide career readiness type skills to help support kids to give them opportunities the best that they can and have them be able to access resources that they're able to access.
Okay. All right. Make sure I'm getting everything that I need. So I get it. I mean, you want to teach kids to be respectful. That's all part of the classroom management. But you're saying, yeah,
It's not just about teaching students to be respectful to one another. The social emotional component of a school day is meeting students at the door who are coming with anxiety, who need coping skills, who don't have a soft, comfortable bed to sleep in at night, didn't have a good meal to eat the previous evening, may go many evenings without meals, may be part of our backpack program. May be living with grandparents, may be doubled up in homes. So those are the types of things that we are trying to address through social emotional learning. It's not that we are putting them in a pipeline to go through the same things. It's really about what is the student coming to school with and what are those needs and how can we go about supporting them and helping them to access their education. And that's the most important part of what we do, is making sure that students who are coming into school, that they're not hungry, that they feel safe, that they are comfortable in being able to share with a trusted adult that there might be something going on wrong at home. I mean, the amounts of phone calls that we make to children and youth services in a week's, month's time is far more than what I would like to even be able to recite. The amount of children that come home into school and share different things with us. So that's part of the social emotional learning and what we're trying to do to support students so that they can access their academics and be able to grow and become successful, competent individuals as they leave us. So that is also a component of what we do. And I see Dr. O'Barrow is also getting up.
The other part that I would say is very much so tied to the social emotional learning component. It's not a programmatic piece as much as when you think about the habits, the strengths, the needs of our students, and as you're looking ahead to careers, what do you need as far as self-management to be able to meet a deadline, to be able to follow through on a plan, to be able to establish work steps, from the beginning to the end, helping them think about teamwork and how do I work collaboratively with somebody that I might like, but then somebody that I might not connect as well with. So how do we respectfully work together? But then also thinking about myself, what strengths do I have that might be different than Mr. Stout that ultimately are going to help make us a strong team? And when we're thinking about that goal of when they leave high school, what might my career be based on my strengths and what I know about myself and what my interests are, and how is that going to help support me as I move forward into college or career or the workplace? So all of those pieces are things that we are framing within it's great, it's really important that our students within math understand how that's connected to careers, how is science connected to careers, how, if you're really good in ELA and writing, what does journalism possibly look like? What are some careers that, in communications, that might connect with you? Go ahead.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Stone.
okay, just,
Mrs. Scott, I'm sorry.
so it's not curriculum.
No, there's not
It's
a
just
curriculum.
what a teacher does.
It's how you frame that
It's
learning
not,
environment.
it's not curriculum. You don't design anything special. You see kids that have needs and you meet those needs, or you help, or you call in help from a counselor or whatever.
The curricular pieces that we might have would be like the prevention piece, like with the drug and alcohol awareness, like when Officer French and Officer Perez had mentioned that they come in. There are some prevention pieces that would fall under that wellness, mental health umbrella. There would be some curricular resources that we would use for that. But from the more broader social emotional learning and how that classroom environment is structured is not programmatic like that.
Okay.
We also have the chemical on abuse, COCA, on chemical abuse that come in that also provide supports. And along with ESAP training so that we are prepared to, give those other supports to students as they are entering our schools. Just to give you a few statistics, through the date of October 25th, and I'm sorry I don't have even more current data, we have done the following amount of threat assessments within our district. At Boyertown Area High School, there were 4 threat assessments done. Boyertown, there's elementary 2, Culverdale Elementary 2, Earl 4, Gilbertsville 7, Middle School East 4, middle school, I'm sorry, I have 2 middle school. Between the 2 middle schools, we have had 19 threat assessments, and then the other 2 elementaries, we didn't have any. So that is also a part of what we're dealing with every day with respect to students who are hurting themselves, cutting themselves, having suicide ideation, every day.
Yeah, I went on the CDC website somehow linking through this. And it was good. And I did see that our kids are struggling emotionally, and not our kids, but nationwide. Okay. But that was in 2019. There's no other information after that. And I am concerned, so we'll flip away from there for a minute, that we don't have our scores are not going up. So is that because our kids have not recovered emotionally from what happened in 2020, or what, and I know this is statewide, probably nationwide, but I don't want to sit on that and say, well, everybody's struggling, so that's okay, because we don't want to think that way, right? I mean, you want to get the scores up. So why do you think here in Boyertown, we recognize it as teachers, so what's keeping those scores down with our kids? What do you think it is?
Well, and I mean, I'll speak to that. I'm hypothesizing because it would really be hard to give you actual information about that. But I think you almost answered your own question by all of the questions you asked. Okay. It's all of those components that are causing us inconsistency within those scores. And I remind you that those scores, as we went back to that assessment slide, are based upon state assessment scores. Right. It's based upon where kids were expected to be at the tail end of a school year, based upon a summative assessment. I do assure you that across our district, we would call a formative assessment an assessment that informs us in how we move forward to help support kids. Our formative assessments are showing that our kids are making progress. But to your point, which is an incredibly valid point, is our kids are lower than they've been. Our teachers have struggled because first graders coming into second grade were lower than they had been the previous year. Eighth graders moving to ninth grade were lower, and teachers had to make modifications, which they might not have been accustomed to doing in previous years. For many years, they came in with kind of a prerequisite of where they were, but they missed out on some of those opportunities. And you asked that question, and the answer to that question is because of what has transpired over the past couple of years. But we are picking ourselves up and looking at trying to meet the needs of our kids in all levels, because you can't ignore all of those data points that Mrs. Torsha made reference to. If a student comes to our class and all of these things are going on, it's hard to ignore those things and say, hey, we're going to teach you Algebra 1 today. We need to make sure that we find a common ground, meet their mental health needs the best that we can, can based upon the resources we have and move forward. But our formative assessment scores are absolutely moving forward, and our kids are progressing. In fact, we've had some incredible growth over the past year because our kids are back, because we're able to go back to instructional practices that are yielding excellent results. But we have some space to make up, and we all know that, and everybody's working diligently to do that.
Okay, one more question. Well, maybe not. With behavioral problems, okay, or issues, or kids, with anxiety or whatever. Are you talking to the parents? Is there a conversation going on? Do you usually recommend that they seek? Well, I mean, we're an educational facility. We're not a medical. So when do you immediately say, hey, I think Johnny's having a problem here, or how do you do that? What is your guideline to that?
It's a great question, and we have a certain level of educational resources available within the Boyertown Area School District, but we also have connections to outside agencies that support us. The Student Assistance Program, the SAP program, especially at the secondary level, I get to have the opportunity to sit in many discipline type situations at the secondary level, and if they are related to drugs and alcohol, if they're related to fights, if they're related to significant getting along with one another kinds of issues, it could very well be that the recommendation is that a parent is given a SAP referral form, Student Assistance Program referral form. It's voluntary. It's not something that they're required to do, although we highly recommend it. And then what happens is an assessment is done by an outside institution, and they get evaluated on determining if from the outside, from a mental health perspective, they qualify for whatever that support is. Completely confidential from the school district. It has nothing to do, we don't get the results from that, but we make those recommendations quite honestly all the time based upon some of the things we see, because kids have a lot of needs right now and we're trying to support them.
So there's a good collaboration with parents, teachers.
There is, to your point about resources available, I was going to say something, but I'm not going to say, lead the horse to water, but you can't make a drink. We provide the opportunity for parents to have access to those resources. We can't twist their arm and say, you have to do that. So there are many times that, yes, it is an excellent scenario. Honestly, there's many times when we make a SAP referral and we learn through the process that Johnny or Susie is already in some kind of counseling program already. And then we have sometimes a release, because it's a good thing that schools and counselors sometimes can talk to one another so that we have people on the same page, because if they're working on the same goals, the same kinds of strategies, sometimes we can help to support that here in the school as well. So that portal is kind of a two-way street, as much as parents are willing to allow that opportunity.
So one more question, then I'll. Okay. So when we went to the student surveys that are administered through, it's called PAYS, the Pennsylvania Youth Surveys. There is, just for parents to know, there's a document. If you click on one of the links, this is going to be available to them, right? Okay. You can see a document where it looks like this is where a teacher would go if they're going to do a survey. Is that right? Because it's like a question survey, it's called?
It was conducted last year with respect to a series of questions, and it was on a voluntary basis.
Yes.
And based upon that pay survey, you also can see trends within the district that change over time, related to drugs and alcohol, related to all kinds of issues that are out there. And that information is used to help just give us a snapshot of what kids are kind of going through right now. So yes, that information is available.
So when do you decide you're going to issue a survey to a class
I think
or
pays
two?
every two, well.
Do you don't give this is like a 10-page document.
Prior to the pay survey ever being provided to any of our students, number one, it's put before the school board, and the school board elects to participate or not. Upon participation, if we have the support, then parents give permission for their child to either opt in or opt out of taking that survey.
Okay, yeah. Right.
So it is collaborative 100%. It's done once every other year, and the data is, brought together to really help us manage the problems within our community and to be able to address them. Do we need to budget for more Karen Foundation people to be within our buildings? Should we have somebody 3 days a week, 5 days a week? Do we need somebody at the elementary? Do we need somebody at, you know, every level of the building? So it has a lot to do with how we are putting our supports in place for students, you know, that are coming into our doors every day.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I had wanted to piggyback off of Mrs. Scott's part about SEL, and it really, when Mrs. Torsha made a comment, who is trained for this to help our students? I mean, is it the teacher? Is it a nurse? Is it who's?
The answer is yes. All of the people you made mention to are provide support as they're able. Our counselors specifically in a building are some of that very specialized support that are in our buildings on a daily basis to provide support. But the practices that go along with some of those strategies and things like that are what our teachers might implement. If there is some kind of medical issue that goes along with that, about, you know, Mrs. Torsha made the point about hunger, different things that go along with that. Certainly our nursing staff that is available within our buildings help to support kids in that element as well.
How much training does everybody have? I mean, because a teacher just can't go in there and offer all of this. I mean, there has to be a significant amount of training involved in that.
I would just say it's really a team approach.
It is.
So when I was a classroom teacher, I had a little one that I was very concerned about coming hungry to my classroom, and I immediately went to the counselor, went to the principal. We put together a plan. We were able to get some extra food from lunch and set it aside. It happened to be a kindergartner who came in the afternoon, and we've just put together a plan of how do we best support this, talked with the family, and you know, brought all of those supports together to ensure that this kiddo came to school really ready to learn as much as possible.
But if it's an emotional need,
So the social emotional learning is mental health prevention. So if a teacher is seeing that a student is struggling, maybe they're the first one to see that a child is cutting, or that there's ongoing absenteeism. The teacher is not going to be the person who's going to be providing any type of counseling. They're going to refer them to the counseling office if they're seeing something pretty significant. And that from that point, the counseling office is going to be in contact with the parent. This is what we're seeing, have a conversation, and let them know that there's a multitude of avenues that we can go in which we can support their child in our school. We could provide school-based counseling, which is a more therapeutic counseling level that we have. We have used our mental health monies to make sure that we have people in place, you know, throughout the district to be able to provide this layer of supports. You know, depending on what their issues are, will determine the avenue that we would be making recommendation, you know, for. Maybe it's something that needs to be taken care of outside of the school, but we know that as students have access to counselors and those supports within the school setting, they're more likely to access them. Whereas a parent doesn't have to then come home from work, take them there, and, you know, add on to their day. So that's part of the SEL. It's mental health awareness, and, you know, being able to identify and being able to then follow the supports. It's like a ladder, you know, the different rungs. The teacher isn't necessarily going to be the person that's going to be providing the supports, but they're going to be the person who may see it. Same as the bus driver. The bus driver might see that Johnny's getting on the bus every single day, you know, sad, won't be talking, you know, their disposition has changed. They're going to get off the bus, go in, say something to the principal. They're going to get, you know, Johnny, say, is everything okay? So, you know, we keep continuing to go up those ladder, you know, rungs, so that we can help to put those prevention strategies in place, so that we don't have someone harming themselves or making an attempt or setting up a plan. So it's a lot of people, and we all have training in different aspects of it. I would tell you that I would be able to see, but I would also then be looking for who do I need to tell to help to make sure?
Okay, my concern was that a teacher was trying to give the emotional
and
support there.
Mrs. Nyman, another piece too that we as employees within the Boyertown Area School District as public school employees are mandated reporters. And we go through mandated reporter training to really look at some of these characteristics and things like that, and we report and help to support in that process. And to piggyback on Mrs. Torsh's point, each of our buildings have teams of people that if there is sometimes particular issues, academic, emotional kinds of issues, that we have teams that we recommend to help support, to provide a plan to help guide what that next step is. But I'm sorry, I misunderstood. The teacher isn't necessarily that direct, although there's strategies that a teacher uses to understand that, you know, some of our students need a little more support in different areas than others.
But my concern was that the teacher was trying to do the social emotional part of it in the classroom, and that's
and I think to maybe provide a little more clarity on that, it's social emotional is not this. It's encompasses the classroom, and it's not like, okay, we're going to do like it's a social emotional lesson now, it's time to do this, boys and girls. That's not really how it works. It's just the basic how the culture and how students are treated and how we support all of our students. It's embedded within the practices. So it's not like it's time. It really is embedded. And if you see and you with your grandchildren and your own kids in each of our, and having the opportunity to be in multiple buildings, there are themes in the buildings and how they handle, like at Colbertdale, we were expected. And that whole process was about treating each other with respect and, having expected behaviors. Well, that whole culture was, you could say, was part of that emotional theme to our building to help support our students. So each building kind of has their own practice, but it's not this isolated thing.
No, my concern was that the teacher was trying to do it.
It's a great question.
Per the classroom. So, okay, under the curriculum materials and instruction materials, how is this controlled or supervised with audio-visual material in that? I mean, that they're not getting into things that they shouldn't be into. The technology, we have filters within. If you're talking about accessing something that they should not be, there are always workarounds to get to places where we probably don't want kids to be, but we try to put as many parameters in place to stop that. So I can't say to you that there's not a time that things like that may happen, but from the educational process and how a teacher provides some sort of internet-based resource, I think is probably what you're referring to. There are filters in place through our technology department. We're increasing those filters on a daily basis because every day there's something new out there that kind of needs to go through and be blocked. But kids will only be given the resources that our teachers will provide to them. If they try to go a different direction, hopefully we have the strategies and the supports in place to help block that scenario. Okay, then either like elementary school to elementary school or even middle school, high school, how are our students all getting the same direction, the same material, the same teaching, the same education that we're supposed to be giving them? How can we do that with
all of, how can we
not knowing that, okay, teacher A gives this out, teacher B gives this out? How, or school A gives this, school B gives that?
Well,
how are they getting the same information, the same education?
So as you know, we have early dismissals. We have professional learning days. Teachers don't just kind of hang out on those days. We work very hard on those days to have collaboration. In the one presentation we had presented to all of you, Dr. Obero, myself, talked about professional learning communities. A professional learning community from an educational perspective provides us the opportunity to bring like grade level partners across buildings because within buildings there are teams. If you're a fourth grade team at Boyertown Elementary, you have the opportunity to work collaboratively, but there are points in the year that we provide opportunities to work district-wide so that they have access to the same materials. They provide feedback to one another about what worked well, what maybe didn't work so well. At the high school level, there are departments. The high school has built into their faculty meetings, into their cycles. They have planning components where teachers can work collaboratively to provide the most efficient opportunities to meet the needs of our kids. But I'm going to say to you that the needs of our kids are very diverse because kids are, here and down there, we call that differentiation. And how do we differentiate to meet the needs of our kids? And to the point that Mrs. Scott made earlier, our kids are probably lower. I won't say lower than they've ever been, because I think coming into last year, kids were at an academic low compared to where they may have been, but they're catching up. And how do we provide, what this student needs versus that student needs, but look at the standard, and we're still focusing on that same spot. But as Dr. Obero talked about the learning targets, sometimes there's different roadmaps to get to that end product, and our teachers have to work very diligently to meet the different needs of our students.
And we do have core instructional resources that, like, for instance, Eureka Math is a math resource we use in 1st grade through 5th grade. So everyone has that resource. That resource is going to help support your mini lesson or your focus lesson for that whole class. The teachers are going to, across 5th grade, let's say, are going to use that lesson. But within that differentiation, so this group of kiddos needs something more, this group of kiddos needs a little bit of extra remediation, that's where that flexibility comes in with the additional resources that might be used.
And to the point of special education, that's a whole nother element of this, Mrs. Nyman. So if a child has an IEP, how do we support that child to try to get them as close to those standards as they possibly can with adaptations, accommodations, specially designed instruction along the way to help support them get to that end goal?
Okay. At the beginning, you said something about you removed immediately from just that class. If somebody has a concern, like say I have a concern about my child getting this material, you're removing it from that class. What about the other classes that have the same teacher that are getting that material?
If we would...
That course, it wasn't just that class.
Yeah, it wasn't just that class. So we would say that if there was anything that would be thought about as questionable, and the team of people felt like, you know what, we should reevaluate this as if it's an effective strategy or an effective resource available. If it was in one class and we knew it was in multiple classes, we would look to remove that. Just the same thing if we found some sort of resource that was very successful in one class because a teacher tried this particular math strategy or whatever that might be, we might at the next professional learning day say, hey, let's bring this in. Let's have a quick presentation on what this might look like because it was really effective in this particular area. So it kind of goes both ways.
Okay, another thing you had said was thinking critically, which I want the children, the students to think critically, but I don't want that. I want them to think, not be told how to think. And I've been told for like 2 years now that they're only allowed to have like certain news networks where they take their social studies from. I think the one gentleman told me it was like CNN. Why are we doing that? Why aren't they allowed to pick whatever source they want?
Many of our social studies classes within the middle level use CNN 10. It was determined to be a resource that provides information to students. Not necessarily, they preview it to make sure that it's not providing a biased. Even though it's titled CNN, it's providing a resource to give students information. They preview it to determine that it's not a biased presentation. If they determine it's a biased presentation for whatever it would be or misinterpreted, they don't show it. We could, very easily use a discovery learning resource to provide a very similar kind of opportunity for kids to have access to information.
But if we're teaching the kids to do their own thinking, why don't we leave them just pick whatever source they want and go from there?
Well, we try to provide consistency for our kids. So that's a resource like at this particular time. They might watch that and then they might and have dialogue or whatever that would be about that, whatever the topic may be on that particular day.
That's a big concern of mine. I want them to be the thinker, not being told this is the network you use.
We want to teach kids how to think and not what to think. I don't disagree with that mindset in any capacity. I would offer the opportunity for you to take time, watch CNN 10, watch a few previews of it, and if you feel that it is something that is not educationally sound or provides too much of a biased opinion based upon some sort of thing, let's have a conversation.
Okay.
Chris, real quick, I had the same concern you did because of the first 3 letters. Going into it, it's pretty much middle of the road, gives opinions on both sides.
Well, I'm just working the polls and neighbors in my community. The one gentleman was very upset because it was CNN 10, and he did not appreciate his daughter having to take from that. So,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think Mr. Zawada, one of your statements in the beginning, something about unbiased. What is said in the community versus what is actually happening within that. I ask, I challenge, I suggest. View it yourself and make your own informed decision, and we can gladly have a conversation about it. You can give me an opinion on how you feel about it.
okay, I will do that. I noticed on your one slide, you went into that pre-K through 5 ELA, and when you opened it, it was dated 2014.
That's when the standards were published.
That's the last they were published.
That's the last they were published, and nothing's changed since then.
The science standards are
They are under revision right now.
They're under revision.
They've been approved. We're now starting to look at how do we bring that into the classroom. That's where that
Because
2025
that's
piece.
8 years old, and now it's like, I thought maybe it was just an old slide, and,
Nope. Nope.
okay, thank you.
Good detail to notice.
Nope.
I am. So I just wanted to ask a clarifying, and then I had more of a statement than a question. So CNN 10 is a resource that is created specifically for students. Yeah. So it's a student resource,
Right.
and you use it, or it is used to help, like you said, if you were having a discussion about something, the kids all read a
Compare it.
similar article, and then you have a classroom discussion. Okay.
And we have a whole policy on current events. Oh my gosh, I'm going to draw a blank on what number it is. But there's a policy that has about 4 or 5 bullets on it, and it outlines our practice for current events, and it meets the criteria of what that policy is.
And I would assume that it would make sure that it's appropriately leveled. So if a
It's
third
developmentally
grader,
appropriate.
right? Okay, yeah, because I was actually on it with my daughter the other day, reading about daylight savings time for for a project we were doing. So, and
I would like to also extend that it is not used across
Right.
the curriculum or
Mostly middle and high.
any particular class. It is just a resource that some teachers choose to use. It is not something that is in every single classroom.
yeah, I did notice that just in this particular project, we were actually given, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 resources to pick from, and we went into them, and that just so happened to have an article that she was interested in. But it wasn't like, oh, just go here. There was a wide variety of places she could go. And then I just wanted to say, I thought it was an excellent presentation, so thank you. I really appreciated it. It was really in depth. And I think it was very, very well done. I'm sure it was a ton of work, so thank you. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch on resilience, which I think is a piece of that SEL. And when we're talking about mental health prevention, just even for children who aren't struggling with mental health, teaching and building resilience is really important. And I think that you guys really did a great job of showing how you're building that in there. And I think the one of the great examples is the test scores, and that we are a little lower right now, but we're teaching kids, hey, that's okay. You can catch up. You can be resilient. So I just wanted to say kudos to all of you and all of our teachers and the staff. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Just taking off of that, how are we making sure our seniors are caught up for their graduation this year? I mean, because this is their last year. We can't take another year to get them caught up, so what do we?
Mrs. Nyman, they have to follow their program of study and they have to accrue X amount of credits every year. So if they have not mastered the courses that they've taken, then they would have to either have participated in summer school, credit recruitment, or retake the class within their senior year. So students are on par as long as they're attending school, completing their coursework, and following their level. So it's not a matter of getting anyone caught up. It's a matter of making sure that they are taking the correct amount of courses that they're passing, and that they have the graduation credits they need in order to graduate.
And I understand that part of it, but a D to me is not acceptable when they were A or B students before that. So how are we making sure that they're up to what they were prior to this?
Yeah, I don't know. The high school wants to chime in on this, like flex and the different pieces that.
Yeah, different types of remediation support, like Ms. Torsha mentioned, regarding credit recovery and the support, but the overall performance, I think, comes down to an individual student's choice and dedication. Mr. Stout referenced taking the horse to water, making him drink as well. We're constantly looking for different ways and challenging, questioning ourselves what we can provide the students to get them at that high level of excellence we want to see from all of them. And some students over the years rise to the occasions, some change, and there's everything in between. Now, when we talk about kind of a rebound, if we're talking about the COVID years, it'll be a continuation. I think it'll be a continuation in our society for multiple years. But when we look at our students' preparedness for graduation, we're on par. We're ready with what we've seen in previous years from our graduating classes. We're excited for what we're going to present to you in June for our graduates, what they're going to bring. It's a good group.
Follow up and say that anyone that participated at the board level with the students' presentations at the beginning of the year would see where the students are and that they have really been prepared and are ready to graduate. I think Mr. Zawada, Mr. Brophy were both present at those student presentations, senior presentations, and really showed that they are excited and ready to move on and believe that they're there. And as Dr. Maori said, it is an individual who needs to continue to work on where they're at, and we have plenty of resources in place to support them.
Okay, thank you.
On behalf of the Board of School Directors, I'd like to welcome you to this Education and Student Service Committee meeting. We welcome your attendance and input from stakeholders to assist us with making recommendations and decisions related to the Boyertown Area School District. The procedures and rules for public participation are detailed in BASD Board Policy 903. This document is available on the BASD website. Participants properly registered with the Board Secretary will be recognized by the presiding officer. Public comment period is limited to the topics on tonight's agenda. Participants must preface their comments by an announcement of their name. Participants are encouraged to direct all statements, inquiries, and questions to the presiding committee liaison and or the board as a whole. Note that we value and will not compromise the privacy of our students and staff. Please see us outside the realm of public meetings if you have concern about the individual staff members or student. If your public comment includes a question, Mrs. Torsha or a member of her staff will be in contact with you to confirm your question and provide you with information. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. In advance of this meeting, 12 members of the community have registered their intent to speak, and we will be calling upon each of them. Finally, note that we do record our board and committee meetings, and we post them on YouTube with a link on our website. We request that if you do wish to take pictures or record a meeting yourself, you do so in a non-disruptive and discreet manner, and use those materials respectfully and responsibly. Thank you. First up, Joseph Pisione.
Hit it with my thing here. So I took some notes, so I'm gonna jump around. I was trying to put it together. I didn't know I'd be the first one here. So first I want to say thank you to the people that gave the presentation, Mr. Stout, Ms. Zobero, Mr. Maori. I think I got your name right. I think it was really important to establish a baseline so that everyone here is on the same page with what's going on with curriculum. A lot of times when I hear people talk about curriculum, it sounds like they think it's a detailed plan and a book that we give to teachers about what to teach, what resources to use, how to have discussions, and that it's basically just a script for them to execute in their classroom. But that's not what curriculum is. A curriculum is a rough sketch of the objectives of a course and how they're tied to those state level standards of what students should know and be able to do for their subject matter and grade level. Curriculum is not Waze or Google Maps telling someone how to go, where to turn. It's more akin to a map that you would use for orienteering through the woods, giving simple instructions and leaving it to the educators to make their way to that end goal. It's important to remember that because a good curriculum gives decision-making power to those experts and boots on the ground, the teachers in the classroom. It's important to acknowledge that no one is an expert on all of the subject matter and skills and knowledge that our students need to be able to master and understand. The only way to get there is to put that decision in those hands of the experts that know the math and how to teach it, that know the ins and outs of teaching reading, how to analyze the text, that know the history and can teach it from many perspectives, or physics. I'll skip that part, sorry. That said, schools should never have and never should be a place where the only thing happening, where the only priority is those basic academics and nothing else. Schools are a place to prepare students for life, all of life. And that is where SEL comes in. And SEL is exactly what we saw at the start of this meeting. It is being kind, it is being respectful, it is treating everyone nicely, it is learning how to deal with others. And that is what teaching is really about. Nobody really, I don't want to say nobody cares about educational skills and academic skills. They're important, but what will matter a lot more to students is being able to interact with other people, being able to work as a team, being able to work independently when necessary, and treating others well will take them a lot further than if they remember how to use exponents, even though that is, again, quite important. So my sincere hope was this meeting and further discussions do not become a litany on what books we should be looking at removing, or lessons on identity we should eliminate, or how we can keep things like critical race theory or gender theory out of our classrooms. It is instead about how we empower those experts in our classrooms, how we equip them with resources they need to do their job, to reach the district's goal of cultivating an exceptional, innovative learning community that enables all students to succeed in a changing world. We cannot do that if we are refusing to acknowledge changes or withholding information and knowledge from students because we're scared of the world changing. Thanks.
John Amy.
John Amy, New Hanover Township. I also want to extend my thanks to Ms. Torsha and her staff, Mr. Stout, Mr. Maori, Ms. Obaro. Again, hope I got your names right. It's very informative. I'm looking forward to having some time to look over it again on video, and then I'm also looking forward, as you said, to being able to see that brought up, being to see the comprehensive plan put out to public comment. I'm really interested in seeing how that looks and would like to add comments. Want to express one concern, comes from right at the start of the meeting and some of the questioning during the meeting as well. A little bit concerned. I told you last time we met, parents should definitely be involved in their kids' education. Definitely should be involved. Know what's being taught, be there in conference with teachers whenever they can. A little bit concerned that the committee co-chair framed the parent-teacher, and maybe he didn't mean to do this, but he essentially framed the parent-teacher relationship as an adversarial one, calling parents the last line of defense in keeping questionable materials out of the school. And also, when he talked about the chain of command and how you would actually address any concerns you might have, he skipped the most important first person that the parent should probably go talk to, and that's the teacher of their student. Didn't even mention that. A little bit concerned of framing the relationship that way, because it automatically puts our teachers that we say we care so much about and we know have worked really hard and have probably been overstressed, immediately puts them on the defensive. Immediately sets the expectation that they're doing something that parents need to make sure that they're not doing something bad. I don't think that's conducive to a good educational experience. I think the best educational experience is parents and teachers and students working collaboratively together and making sure that all students have the resources they need and that all parents are informed and all parents are working to make sure that the educational experience for all students is the best that they've been. So I'd really ask the board to reconsider when they say things like that. Like I said, kind of sets us up for contention as opposed to collaboration. Finally, I would also encourage board members who have questions about how certain materials are used in the schools, I would encourage them to do what apparently was done earlier in the year and see if you can sit in a classroom, find out how materials are being used. It's my understanding that CNN 10, for example, is really mostly used by some teachers as sort of like just a quick catch up on the events of the day. They don't go into any opinionated stuff. They just say, here's what happened today. I could be wrong about that because I haven't gone into the schools in a while, but I would encourage board members to do that as opposed to potentially coming in with a preconceived opinion of how materials are being used. Thanks very much. Looking forward again, like I said, to more discussion on this.
Lindsay Watolich.
Lindsay Tulik from Boyertown. I'm a licensed professional counselor that has worked with children and teens since 2006, and I've seen the toll that this current culture and social media has taken on our kids and led to depression, anxiety, confusion, self-harm, and suicide. As a parent of young children, I'm always focused on keeping my children safe from harm, and that includes things that they may watch or read. So if I sent them to school, I would have the same expectations for my kids' teachers, that they would make sure that my kids are reading and watching age-appropriate things. If my elementary school student came home and said that they were watching R-rated movies in school, I'm pretty sure every parent or teacher would be outraged. So why is it okay for books in the library to contain the same language and sexual scenes as an R-rated movie? I looked at books that are in Pennsylvania school libraries, and in just 4 books, there were 109 F words and 38 N words. Do we really believe that any parent would be okay with these books? Just those few books included sexually obscene activities, sadomasochism, incest, rape of a minor, child prostitution, profanity, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, drug use, self-harm, controversial racial commentary. If one of my kids came home talking about those words or situations, I cannot tell you how upset I would be that their innocence was stolen from them by a teacher that has no right to show that to my child. If a parent wants to show those books to their children, they are free to do that at home or in a public library. But my teachers and librarians have no right to show those to my child, especially if they're not asking me first. On the Boyertown School website, the goal of the school board is to foster communication and active involvement with parents. So I hope that parents would be more involved in what books are there and given the time to speak and listen to. Thank you.
Krista Collins.
Good evening, and thank you all for having this meeting tonight. It's kind of funny, I actually went to this elementary school, so it's kind of cool to be back many years later, and I still remember this gym. And I also wanted to thank you for the presentation. It was very, there's a lot to unpack there, and there's a lot of research to go back and do. And I, of course, am notorious for changing what I have to say as I'm sitting here listening to things, so I might be a little scatterbrained. I also wanted to thank the teachers in the district who take the time to teach our kids, right? It's generally seems like a thankless job. I think we can all agree that our jobs seem thankless these days. I know sometimes I feel the same myself. I have a lot of friends and family, close friends and family who are teachers, and they've been through it over their careers, right? Teaching has really changed. It's a difficult job. It's generally not always the best paying job. So, you know, but the problem is most teachers are awesome, and probably 99% of them do a great job and would never kind of bridge that gap between what we want our kids to learn when they go to public school and things that we don't really want them exposed to or learn. So I come bringing the experience of moving out of a district that was about 20 minutes from here, because I can tell you the things that they were starting to bring into that district in the name of SEL and CRT. And don't get me wrong, when you look at SEL, it looks great. You're talking about how to meet kids, how to make sure that kids aren't starving when they're sitting there learning. You know, when you talk about those things and you keep it on a real surface level, it sounds like it's a really great thing. And it can be if that's where it's left. And on the surface, to me, it looks like that's pretty much where Boyertown is, which is really good to see. However, there are things that come into the district that are bad. And when districts go down that road of critical race theory and social emotional learning and start looking at everything through an equity lens, that's all that the district talks about. That's all that the board talks about. That's all that they focus on. And I can tell you that that's when books like a book about whiteness and other terrible things gets into an elementary school, when other books come in. And I totally support gay rights. I totally support all of that. So I'm not saying that those are bad things, but age appropriate comes into play, right? We need to make sure that we have age appropriate lessons for the kids. So what I'm here to ask the board and to ask that we can participate in is some sort of better transparency around our policies with curriculum, with transparency to teaching aids, things like that. I think you had talked about the curricular materials, better transparency around those. So let's work on that. Let's have upcoming work sessions. Let's have town halls. Let's get people that probably don't all have the same viewpoints to get together and work about better transparency with those things. If there's nothing to hide, we should be fine with having more transparency. Some of the policies are done in just a second. Some of those policy numbers are 105, 105.1, and 119. Okay, thank you very much.
Cassandra Rooney.
Our children need us right now more than ever, or they risk getting swept away by some who may not have the best intentions. Be concerned and aware of our government school system and the money trail. I had a curriculum review for ELA this week and called out a document to have questionable words being used, like gender norms and considering intersectionality. 2 days later, it was removed. They are hiding behind policy and teachers. Teachers are open to creating a resource list without scrutiny unless reported. They're hoping we don't ask, which is really sad. They hide behind policy, but do you have morals? Where is the decency in the 57 bus? We believe it was recommended by a teacher for a middle school student. It has 58 plus mentions of gender identity topics, 13 plus questionable terms like rape, communism, the N-word, 10 plus drug mentions, 14 plus profanity words, which the school would write a student up for if they used in the classroom. The district cannot pretend to care about children's mental health and damage it at the same time. If anyone needs help getting a curriculum review for a class in their child's grade, please reach out. We have knowledge to share. Our school needs to pay closer attention to what becomes recommended and suggested. Board Policy 119, current events, needs to be referenced and checked with the Scholastics materials, National Geographic, News ELA, and again, CNN 10 in 6th grade. Our children need academics and life skills, useful material, not to be influenced towards confusion and instabilities. I believe you already subjected them to enough, leaving them home alone or masked while in school, or should I say while indoctrinating them. I hope you follow your PA School Code 4.11 and have your teachers read it often. The slide with the curricular materials has all unlocks, and that's where we need to take control.
Lindsay Mason.
Good evening. My name is Lindsay Mason, and I am a Boyertown graduate, Boyertown School District resident, Douglas Burks, taxpayer, and I have a son in the high school. We have also had 3 others come up through the Boyertown School District. And full disclosure, I am also a librarian, a middle school librarian. I was previously the Boyertown Community Library Director, and I am now a middle school librarian in a different district. I'm here today to talk about intellectual freedom and the selection of curriculum and instructional materials, as we know there are people who are threatening this very freedom. Intellectual freedom is defined as students having the right to any and all information. Access to a wide variety of reading materials is imperative for student development and well-being, to help them understand themselves and the world around them. Limiting young people's access to books does not protect them from life's complex and challenging issues. However, books are wonderful tools that can be used to understand these complex situations, as they create bridges for the parents to talk with their children within the safety of their home. Books also help communities to learn and build mutual understanding. Parents should not be making decisions for other parents' children. Just because my values are different from another family's values doesn't mean that one is right and one is wrong. Parents are encouraged to have conversations about what they deem appropriate in their own home, but your rights end where mine begin. However, the issue is even larger than that. As an educator, I strive to create an environment that makes every student feel loved and accepted. Let me reiterate that. Every single student feels loved and accepted, not just the ones that have viewpoints exactly like mine. For this reason, educators choose curriculum materials and library books to represent all cultures and opinions, so that every child feels they are being represented. To take a particular resource or book out of a library or curriculum because a minority doesn't agree with it means you are not only denying other students their right to learn about other cultures and ideals, but you are implying that a student who identifies with that book isn't important enough to have literature that represents them in our schools, that their lives don't mean enough to have books that represent them, and we wonder why our students have mental health issues. Remember that little initiative Boyertown started in 2006 entitled No Place for Hate? It goes beyond wearing t-shirts and holding unity walks. If we are truly a no place for hate town, everyone's culture and ideals need to be recognized. No one person has the right to say that one culture or ideals are more important than another. As our nation continues to diversify, our children need access to materials that help them to understand all cultures so that they can become better citizens who are accepting of everyone. I implore you to leave curriculum and material decisions to the educators who are the experts. If anyone is interested in continuing the conversation, I would be happy to meet with the board at any time. And I just want to say that the 57 bus is optional reading. It is also a middle school reading Olympics book, which was chosen by a consortium of counties for reading Olympics. So it's optional. Thank you.
Thomas Rapella.
Thomas Rapella, Douglas Township. I think this current government schools curriculum is brainwashing our kids. I think this current government schools curriculum is brainwashing our kids. A question from an assignment that was given to my daughter and the whole 7th grade ELA class roughly 4 weeks ago. In what ways does this identity give you power and privilege in your school, your community, and your society? Identity. So, board members, superintendent, and the curriculum team, can you please explain to me, why are you people asking my daughter's identity powers in the relationship to English class? What are your guys' identity powers? And does the community accept your identity? Board members, superintendent, and the curriculum team, it is not okay to give my daughter a social identity matrix paper in 7th grade ELA class, or to any of the kids. I repeat, it is not okay to give my daughter a social identity matrix paper in 7th grade ELA class, or to any of the kids. a paragraph from a book that was suggested to my daughter for a classroom assignment in the 7th grade ELA class. The paragraph that was in the book. They got him messed up. That's effed up. That's hella effed up. Real stupid mother effers. Man. Page 116. This is from the 57 book. The 57 bus book. Board members, superintendent, and the curriculum team, can you please explain to me, why are you allowing this horrible book to be suggested to my daughter in the middle school and to all the other kids? Parents, we need to dig down deep and come together to get the stuff out of the hands of our children. Request visits to your kids' classrooms and request curriculum reviews. A majority of teachers and the current curriculum does not care about the kids. And if you don't know where to start or need a helping hand to get the process started, just reach out to someone. You are not alone. Thank you.
Anita Church.
She's not here.
Donnie Savage.
Hi, Donnie Savage from Upper Frederick. This is a comment from someone with experience of 10 years sitting in your seat. Please focus on your job of governance and oversight. Ensure that you have a vision, a mission, and strategic goals that are aligned and current. Ensure the policies are aligned with your strategic goals. Ask for verification that they're followed and establish a budget that supports that mission, vision. I know, I'm getting there. And goals. Then let the education experts, starting with the superintendent you hire, do their job. You will hear many differing points of view from the public. Parents represent and advocate for their own children, as they should. But remember that you have a process for parents to exempt their children from specific instruction. Public schools are required to educate every student. Administrators, teachers, librarians, and the entire staff have spent their careers learning how to do this. And as you saw from the fabulous presentation today, that just supports that claim, right? And a suggestion for that presentation, keep that. And that's a great resource for new board member orientation. So you don't have to recreate materials. So remember that they are the experts. You are not the experts. I am not the expert. The parents are not the experts on what's good for every child. They're the expert for their own child. So get out of the way of the experts. Thank you.
Jennifer Thompson.
Thanks. Good evening. Jennifer Thompson, New Hanover Township. First, I just want to say thank you to the Office of Teaching and Learning, Ms. Torsha, Mr. Miori. I think you guys did a great job. I feel like I got 3 college level credits in that time period. I have 3 kids in the district, 2 at the elementary level, 1 at the high school. I have been a teacher for 15 years myself. I'm here tonight because a school board member encouraged parents to attend since the topic had to do with curriculum and materials were recommended to bring. So I just wanted to share some from some of my students, my kids. Pumpkin counting to 10. This is kindergarten. October writing journal. Most of it's just pictures. That's another kindergarten. That's an exit slip. 5th grader. Suffixes. And also a poem about himself. All appropriate, not questionable. Based on these materials, I don't understand the purpose for this meeting. It sounds like we're creating problems and contaminating our schools with politics.
And based on the questions that were asked by some school board members, I'm guessing no school board member has a degree in curriculum and instruction or education. And if not, that's fine, but you're not qualified to make decisions related to curriculum. If parents are concerned about materials, they should contact the teacher, the professional. Principals and the Office of Teaching and Learning have better things to do. The protocol you have in place is an intimidation factor, and it's political. If there is an increase in teacher resignations this year, we will know why. Do you know what our district needs? We need you to get creative and figure out how to recruit highly qualified teachers and retain them. Figure out how to get subs every day. Go to Harrisburg and fight to reduce standardized tests. Figure out how to get Boyertown more funding and keep our schools safe. We need every board member to become more educated on social emotional awareness because knowledge is power. Stay in your lane, keep your politics at home.
Doreen Harold.
Hi, my name is Doreen Harold from Upper Frederick. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was very helpful and educational. Provided a lot of insight into the hard work that goes into planning our children's education. I'm also grateful that at the end of the last board meeting, it was pointed out, or was reminded, at least to me, about the portrait of a graduate. I took a look at the website and I really appreciated taking a second look at that. I haven't looked at it in a while. What I have to say, I hope, is very short, and I'll follow up with an email. I would just want to say that I'm grateful for the education that my children get at Boyertown School District. I hope you'll turn to the solution that when a family does not want their children exposed to particular information or concepts, that they can be excused from that information or assignment or what have you, rather than denying all children that information and learning opportunities. I asked librarians at my children's schools and was told that notes can be put in the library's management system when a family requests that their children not have access to any library resources. Taking that approach enables that family to do what they prefer to do, and then allows other families to do what they prefer to do, what they're comfortable with their families. I've had notes sent home that a particular topic or film was being discussed in class, looking for my approval to say whether or not I want my child exposed to that. And I appreciate that because it lets me take my children's learning into my hands without impinging upon other people's children and families. This approach allows me to set restrictions when I feel appropriate and doesn't deny other families the opportunity to participate when they are comfortable with the information. And I prefer you to take that approach so I can make decisions for what's best for my family and not be denied access when someone else wants to set restrictions for their family when they feel it's appropriate. What's appropriate for their family might not be appropriate for my family, and instead becomes a restriction to education.
Nicole Zelks.
Nicole Zelks. I really didn't have anything planned tonight, but I wanted to sign up to give myself the opportunity to speak if something was discussed that I felt that I would be able to contribute to. So I'm just going to say, I know there's some talk about social emotional learning. It's not really a new concept. It might have a name that people haven't heard before or changed. I don't really know how long it's been around. But my own personal story with it is that when my son was in grade school, I got a call that I had to come in for a meeting. He was having a hard time concentrating, looking out the window, just really, unable to focus. So I had the meeting at the school. They suggested I take him to the doctor and have him evaluated. I did. I took him to our family doctor. We talked about what happened. He told me he thought it was ADD. And I should have him evaluated by a specialist. So I scheduled an appointment and I had him evaluated by a specialist. Turns out his primary care doctor was wrong. It wasn't ADD. He suffered from severe anxiety, where he worried all day long about something bad happening to him. He was unable to concentrate before it. I never picked up on it because I wasn't with him all day at school when it really would get bad. But I learned tools from this along with him once we started getting him treated for it. And he learned tools to cope with it, and I learned tools to help him cope with it. And if it wasn't for that teacher recognizing that something was wrong, I would have never known. Or maybe I would have at some point, but I don't know. So the importance of something like that in our schools is never something that should be attacked because it helps kids. It helped my son, and I know it's helped a lot of others. Thank you.
All right.
Committee comment now.
First of all, thank everybody tonight for bringing their feelings and emotions. Again, we are trying to look at it. We're not trying to pull books, but the only way we can find out about something, again, is starting with our parents. And at that point, there is a system in place. The board is not, it will not make it to our position because of our good teacher, our great teachers, our good great administration, and the understanding that there are problems with some books. So again, like I said, at this point, nobody's pulling any books. Nobody's claiming the sky's falling. We still believe, Tony and I, that Boyertown's one of the best school districts in the state. I believe we have a very good administration that listens to us as board members, and we're always trying to make positive changes. Tonight, Mr. Stout gave an excellent presentation. Tony and I have saw it prior. Even tonight with the additional people helping Mr. Stout explain it better. It is something interesting. I will tell you, when you go into it, there's probably about 800 pages, exactly like Mr. Stout said. But again, I want to thank him for the presentation. I appreciate the board comments tonight. And at this point, Tony has anything to say?
Yeah. So people questioned the motive behind the meeting. The motive behind the meeting was to let the public know that this is the curriculum. Simple as that. This is the curriculum. It is state mandated. This is where it comes from. The only thing you could even question on it is the material used. Everything else is state mandated. So we wanted everyone to understand that. Mr. Stout did a great job. And I know you can't do anything because it's not available yet, but when you go to there, all those little things that are underlined are going to send you somewhere, hyperlinked. And like Jeff said, it's like 800 pages of stuff. Not once did a board member, and Mrs. Torsha could attest to this, did anyone ever ask you to remove a book? Did someone say remove this book? So I don't know why people keep coming here and trying to throw shade at the board saying we're trying to remove books. No one once ever asked to have a book removed. We did ask that if you have issues, because people have, and it was brought to our attention, and emails were sent, and everyone saw those emails, right? Certain things were inappropriate, and that was removed immediately. That's where we're at right now.
I guess at this time, Mrs. Torsha. I'm sorry.
It's announcements, unless you're doing the whole board.
We can do the board.
All right, go ahead.
Keep the comments to curriculum.
All right. Roger, do you have anything?
No.
Ms. Deeroff?
I'll get a chance tonight to thank everybody. I want to thank the whole team that gave us a presentation tonight. It was, as you can see, everybody thought it was very good. And we should probably think about having some more on different other topics, not this one over and over again. It's quite lengthy. But I want to thank everybody that participated in that. I know there was many of you here, and you're waiting patiently to leave. So I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Mrs. Scott?
Yeah, I never question the academics at Boyertown. I always feel like that we have the resources here to be one of the best schools in the state, and I believe that. I have, however, delved into the library, and this does have to do with curriculum, and looked at some of the very, very, very questionable books. If anyone wants the name of those, I don't have them here with me. I apologize, I should have them, I don't. But they're in there, and they're in the middle school library. Let me remind you that pornography is not a culture, that we're not studying Middle Eastern culture or Asian culture or whatever. Pornography is against the law, that children that are under 18 should not even be subject to it. And as adults and as a board, we are overseeing the education of these kids. What I read in some of I had to put it down. It was like, and these are in the library, whether they're on a reading list or not, what are they even doing in a middle school library? And the librarians let these kids check them out. They shouldn't even be in their hands. I recognize the school gets probably boxes of books that come in, but they have to be reviewed. You can't let this material get past them. If parents want their kids to read that, they can go to the Boyertown downtown community and library. They can get those books there because they're there. But in our school, we need to have a level of professionalism. Pornography has nothing to do with being professional. Women are degraded. Any woman in this room who feels like pornography is okay, you are allowing your own people to be degraded and minimalized. And it becomes an addiction for so many that is so hard for them to break later on in life. So this isn't political. This is just common sense to confuse a child's mind with pornographic images and words and everything else that was in those books is just not what they need. They're here to be educated with math and science and language arts and have their fun in music and art and just excel in whatever they do. But when you put this stuff in their hands, it's not, who does it benefit? And what does it benefit? And what's the goal to do that? So I just, and it's against the law. So I don't know how we cover that. And I guess maybe we don't have to get into that. But it is. If you read federal law, it is against the law to, if I sent Mr. Panarella pornographic pictures, I could be arrested for that. But yet it's okay for us to be in the library. Again, I appreciate what you guys put together, all the information. It's a place where we can go, and I love that. I love those links. But the other question on that, on the books, we need to really take a good look at our libraries and our policy for our libraries. Thank you.
Ms. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Zawada. So I just wanted to thank the team again for an excellent presentation. And I was thinking as we were kind of talking about the SEL, and I know that Mr. Stout likes to talk about impact skills and how important they are to employment. I think that that was one of the things you were saying, is that a lot of that is included in that, I don't want to say curriculum because you said it's not, but in those teachings or whatever you want to call it. And then I just wanted to say, Mr. Maori, you were talking about the hyperlinks in the program of studies. That's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that that's going to be happening. I think that's going to be super useful because that is quite a document. So that's really great news. I heard 90% of our teachers have master's degrees. That's super impressive. And I think that we really should be allowing experts to drive education. When I go to my doctor, I don't say to him, no, you're wrong. Listen to me. I looked it up on WebMD. I allow the experts to really help me navigate things that maybe I don't have a full understanding of. And I think that we really need to respect our teachers and the many, many years of education, the many hours of continuing education that they get. And then just thinking about, the it takes a village. That was something that was always said to me when I was young. It takes a village to raise the kids. That's why when the neighbor comes and says you were doing something, you get in trouble. And I think that BASD is doing a great job of helping be part of that village community. So thank you for everything. I just wanted to also thank the district and our leaders for working towards inclusivity so that all students can see themselves reflected in our learning community. I think that's really important. And then just in closing, and I know this isn't about curriculum, but I just wanted to give Earl a big shout out for the work they're doing with Preston's Pantry, the Blue Star Mothers, awesome work, the Earl Strong. It's really great to be here. So that's all I have to say, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Nyman.
First of all, this is my younger grandchildren. I only have my grandson here anymore. This is his school, so it was great to come in here again tonight. I want to thank the school for collecting the food, the candy for the kids. Great idea, great show of the kids to respect their vets. So that was very thankful. Thank you. Yes, it is Vets Day, and I know we're supposed to talk about what is this, but I had a concern about the invite for the vets to the schools. Are we still doing that, Mrs. Torsia?
I believe that there are individual schools that are doing different things. Is there anyone sitting in the audience that has something special going on tomorrow for Veterans Day that would like to share? Dr. Foley?
Actually, what we've done is we've sent out a series of emails to our entire community. And if you would like to come in and see our walls, when you walk through, we have all of them honored with sheets of paper of their history and all their parts, and basically their part in what they did in making this a great place. And the whole hallway is just full of those. So kids spent all afternoon this afternoon putting those up. And hopefully we will return to having some live speakers coming in. We still do on a special occasion. But right now with the multi-serve and stuff, they actually have a bigger dinner there, so they were able to accommodate more people there than we could. So we kind of shared that activity with them.
Okay, that's what I was kind of looking for, because I had some people that were concerned they weren't invited this year. And they thought maybe we were still on lockdown because of COVID.
I'll have to reach out to multi-serve and kind of see where we're at with that connection piece there.
Yeah, because there were some that were really enjoyed coming into the schools and doing that. So. Okay.
Mrs. Landis, I know that you had something going on.
Sure. That's actually the reason why I was late this evening. We had a community veterans event this evening that the Rotary Club put on in Boyertown, and it involves students from many of our buildings. The East-West Middle School Show Choir performed tonight for the veterans at that ceremony. The Bash NJROTC Color Guard did the presenting and retiring of the colors at that. And then we also had thank you cards for all of the veterans in attendance that were made by the 6th graders at Middle School West as part of their team building day this year. And we had a 6th grader who got up and spoke at the program this evening as well. So opportunity for middle school and high school students to participate in that veterans program this evening.
I'm locked out, so thank you very much on that. I know some of the people, the veterans, just didn't really enjoy coming into the school, so that's why I was concerned about that. The microphone's passed out. Sorry. I'll still talk loud. I guess it was a good presentation, and I'll probably, after I look over it again, have more questions that I will be sending Mrs. Torsia on. Because I'm still trying to process all of this, and I'll probably look at the video several times. One of my questions, I guess, is to Mr. Sultanic. If one of the students gets into, I guess there's a visual library or something that they can go into, and they go in there and there's porn in there, and they send it to somebody, what is the liability to that student for that?
Are they using our computers? Are they using their own device? Are they working? Are they doing this from home?
In school.
In school? A child under the age of majority who is circulating inappropriate materials may not have any direct liability under federal law or state law, but may be subject to juvenile prosecution. I'd have to look at that issue if they're circulating inappropriate materials. I thought you were going to ask the question.
I thought you were going to ask the question about district liability under the circumstances. The district would not be liable because we're immune from liability under state law. Under the Child Internet Protection Act, we probably owe some obligations to have filters in our system to the extent possible to prevent inappropriate materials from being accessed electronically. But we would not generally have liability under state law.
Okay, now if it was a teacher's request to have them go in for homework assignment or something, what would be the liability then?
I don't think it changes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would appreciate if you would just look on that for the child, just to be sure. Thank you. So, you know, I hear everybody, but it's about protecting our children and what's right and what's wrong. And I can't believe the public education would want us to be into porn. So maybe we need to look into the 411, the public education, and see what it says in there about things like that for pornographic items. Thank you.
Mr. Brophy? Mr. Hemingway?
Any comments?
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
This is the first meeting that I have missed in person, and I tell you what, it gives you a different perspective when you actually watch it online, and it's interesting. It's a completely different bird's eye view of actually what our meetings are about. So I apologize for not being there in person, but this has been probably one of the most beneficial issues I've had to actually visualize what our meetings are like. And I'm sorry I'm disappointed in our board. I know I don't want to come off as a negative Nelly here, so I'm just going to make my comments. The first speaker, spot on. I agree with the speaker that we are creating more of a problem than what it really is. We got a lot of comments about, oh, we need to have extra time for all the comments and all this other nonsense that's going on. Everybody's so concerned. Well, I tell you what, it's still pretty early. What is it, 9 something? And I didn't really see this big outreach from the community. So that's an indicator to me that maybe we are doing this pretty much okay. We need to trust the people that we have in the positions to make the decisions that we're not capable of doing. I apologize to those who had to be submitted to some of the board members' soapbox moments and all these trying to be political about it and all this and that. Boyertown is a great district. Our administrators know what the direction of the board is, and they've addressed this. I know for a fact that Mr. Stout has gone through to every school district or school building and has addressed to our principals what the direction of this board is, looking towards and also what isn't appropriate in our eye. I'm sorry if I'm rambling, but like I said, when you get a different perspective when you're actually going to view this, and now I finally get a good idea of what our community is seeing during our school board meetings, and we need to step it up because this is ridiculous. We need to start trusting the people that are in our authority, that we entrust to educate our kids, and stop this nonsense. I haven't heard one thing tonight that really was beneficial except the presentation that our experts have presented to us. And shame on us. We better start stepping it up and stop this soapbox political, BS, and start being a school board that's looking forward to enhancing the enrichment of our kids. So I'm sorry if I pissed off anybody, but this has been an enlightening experience here, watching it from what our constituents are seeing from the outside. So school board, this is a warning. You better step it up. I'll take the blame in a leadership position. This has to be fixed. This has to be changed. We got to start having some confidence in those that we have elected, those that we have put in the employment to make these decisions. I always go by this. I dig holes for a living. Who am I to tell these people what to do with educating our kids? So, that being said, thank you for letting me be a part of this meeting. The technology, thank you. Whoever our tech team is, I was able to hear everything clearly, on time. And those of you who spoke during the public comment period, I always appreciate your comments, and thank you very much. And please, let us know. This is a team effort. So sorry to come off angry, but I am. So with that being said, that's my comments for the night.
Mr. Brophy.
Okay, Mr. Stout, first, let me thank you, and I'm not gonna try and go through all the names, because I'll never get them right. But your colleagues and your team, you guys did a great job. I think you've put together a tool that demystified the word curriculum, and curriculum isn't books. It's a much bigger thing that you're going forward with, and I also believe that you've also laid the groundwork for a tool that you can build on and keep the community engaged and involved in what's going on in the school district, so they know what's going on. So I think you've done a great job there with that. I thank you for it. Hey, keep up that good work. It's just pretty much all I have to say on that. I heard a lot of things about pornography tonight. Unless I see specific, first thing I'm going to ask is the definition of pornography for all the people that say there's pornography in our libraries. The other thing I'd say is if you don't have specific examples of it, you shouldn't come in here and slander the school district by stating something that's there that you don't have anything in your hand to show that it is. I guess the book 57, I didn't read 57, whatever it is. So I don't know exactly what's in it, so I won't comment on it since I don't know it. But the one thing to remember is different things mean something to different people. Where there are some things, I'm sure, that are disgusting to all of us, we can probably come to a conclusion on those pretty quick. But there is a process in place, whereas if you get something that you believe is totally inappropriate in the school district, you bring it forward to the school, and there's a resource committee that looks at it. And they'll make the determination what's to what it is. Now, the other part of that is you might not get the answer you want, because what is objectionable to you is objectionable to you, and maybe not to everybody else. So be mindful of that when you're bringing things forward. But don't go away from bringing things forward. Let us all know. But I'm hearing general comments of stuff that, and I've heard this school district slandered tonight. Absolutely slandered with no backing on specifics to back it up. So if you want to bring this stuff forward, don't bring it forward in a school board meeting. Bring it forward to the administration, who can handle that, who will look into that, and who will address it. You're not going to address it here. So I think the curriculum, I'm going to say, I don't think this is making a mountain out of a molehill here. I think curriculum is a big issue nationwide. It's an issue that has to be addressed in all the schools, and it has to be more of making sure that the parents have some overall, I guess the right word is, you know, they believe that the curriculum their kids are teaching is the right one. It's going to get them going forward. And that's what we need to do. And I think there was a great step forward in doing that tonight to show what it takes to get a good curriculum and get people going, and also what it takes to continue making a good curriculum getting forward by partnering with other groups and outside interests to do that. There's three things I look to a school, to an educational system. It's that three-legged stool. One is the structures and the things provided by the administration and the board, because we're part of that. We're all a team on this. That's one leg. The second leg is what's provided by the instructions of the teachers and the staff. That's the second leg. The third leg is the parents. You provide, as the parents, the basis for what your kids are going to be when they get to school, how they're going to react, how they're going to move forward. You take any one of those three legs away and it fails. But the one most important is what the kids bring to school with them. I'm going to speak for the teachers and everybody right now. The teachers want to educate your kids. They don't want to raise them. Plain and simple. They want you to raise them. This thing about different school districts, we want the parents to stay out of the way. No, we don't want you to stay out of the way. But we want to be collaborative. We don't want to be argumentative. We need you to provide the basics to your kids so that the teachers can then do their job, because it's a very important job. That's how the kids are going to. We want to see our kids do better than we do. I know I do. I want to see all my kids do much better than I did. And I think we all want the same thing. We're all just saying it a different way. So with that, I think I'm done. Thank you.
Can I just, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't see you.
I'd like to be able to, I've checked, and I'd like to be able to answer Ms. Nyman's question. The primary area of liability, Pennsylvania has a teen sexting law and penalties that was adopted in 2012, and the law prohibits the sexting of sexually explicit images by minors younger than age 18, and minors whose actions fall under the teen sexting law face, unlike adults, a lesser misdemeanor charge and misdemeanor penalties, which actually could carry with it a 90-day incarceration and a $300 fine. No, I'm sorry, that's a summary offense, but if it's a misdemeanor offense, it carries up to a 1-year incarceration and a $2,500 fine, and second-degree misdemeanors can carry with it a 2-year incarceration and $5,000 fine. But I think the biggest penalty under the legislation for most students would be the forfeiture of the device. The police have the authority to have the device taken and confiscated without compensation to the student or the family if they're engaged in that process. There are other details in question, but in terms of actual prosecution, I think the forfeiture of the device will cause the most reaction, I think, for the student.
I just want to respond to Mr. Brophy. I did not slander the school district. I apologized immediately that I didn't have what I needed, but you will get that information.
Not me.
Well, the administration and the board will get the information that I saw. I would never read it here. I'll give it to someone else to read, but I wouldn't want to do it that way anyway. I will give it to administration and the board as soon as I get it all together, but it's not slander.
We'll just have to agree to disagree on that. But that's not the first time.
Mr. Panaro, you have anything to say? Real quick, and then I'll turn it over. I want to thank Earl for their hospitality tonight. They should be proud of their fundraisers. Also, nobody really talked because it was basically about curriculum, but we should be congratulations to all our fall sports and as well as the music programs. We had a great cavalcade, and I know a lot of the sports went pretty far. Real quick, remember to thank a veteran tomorrow and keep them in your prayers. At this point, it's for you, Ms. Torsia.
Okay. Our upcoming meetings will be November 22nd, which will be our Board of School Directors voting meeting. December 6th will be a board reorganization meeting only, and December 13th will be our final voting meeting, which will be held at the Berks Career and Technology Center. This will be virtual only, but the public will be offered an opportunity to sign up in advance to be able to make public comment, and will be given a Zoom link for that meeting. So those are our 3 meetings before the end of the calendar year, which I can't believe we're saying. So that's all. You don't have to take a motion. You're just going to adjourn it.
Okay.